The latest season of Alone in the Wilderness has started. One morning, a contestant excitedly pulls up his net to find 3 large salmon, enough to last for days. Some contestants risk their lives fishing, making it a mix of joy and sorrow. On the 4th day, Suni wakes up early and puts on his sweater. The autumn morning is just over 10 degrees. He enjoys the scenery and plans to work on his shelter. Sleeping like this every night is freezing. Before working on his shelter, he heads to the shore to check his fishing net, hoping for a catch. Suni's luck is great today. His net is full of salmon, one after another being pulled ashore. Undoubtedly, he is the big winner today, catching 3 large salmon. One fish can last him 2 days. These 3 fish will last him at least 8 days. Suni's family loves fishing, and his wilderness skills are centered around it. Before coming to the challenge, Suni's mom prepared a special piece of gear for him. To an ordinary person, it looks like a warm sweater, but to Suni, it has magical properties. When you feel cold, wearing it makes you much warmer. Suni starts building his shelter. I thought he would build a permanent one, but he only set up a tent. Without food at night, he'll be shivering in the northwest wind. Now it's the 5th day. Fleming wakes up and notes it's the 5th day. Despite his decent shelter, he hasn't been sleeping well. The rocky ground leaves him sore and uncomfortable after sleeping. He then heads to the shore to check his fishing setup. Luckily, he catches an eel. Though it's not big, at least he won't go to bed hungry. Fleming brings the eel back for breakfast. Rick wakes up and heads to the bathroom, recalling his most painful night. Upon waking, he feels reluctant to move, as if his back isn't his own. On the 1st day, he used many pine branches under his sleeping mat. It was comfortable to sleep on. On the 4th day, he did the same, but didn't sleep well. He heads to the shore to check his fishing net, but falls hard while pulling it up. Rick's physical condition is poor. Hunger is severely affecting him. He didn't catch any fish and almost got hurt. He guesses the lack of fish is due to the risky spot. He urgently needs a deeper spot to catch fish. From the mountain, he can see the water depths clearly, and the shallow areas near the shore are quite extensive. Brother Lee continued his search for a good fishing spot. The water was dark, and it reminded him of his earlier fall. He didn't think he'd fall again here. It's like bad luck invited more bad luck. Falling twice in one day. Fortunately, I avoided falling into the water. I got up and kept exploring, feeling like I'm risking my life. Lena aims to catch fish today. Yesterday, he said if he couldn't catch any fish, he would quit the competition. He went to the shore to check his net, and it was already halfway pulled in. The more he pulled, the more his disappointment grew. But at last, he caught a fish, reigniting his hope for survival. Lena lives by the sea and goes out every day with her dog. After catching a fish, she returns to her shelter and starts a fire to cook it. While the fish cooks, she arranges her net for the next catch. Soon, a big pot of fish soup is ready. After 5 days of hunger, finally having a big meal felt incredibly lucky. Some contestants go 10 or 20 days before their first meal. Eating after 5 days feels like winning the lottery. As others have breakfast, Meta is just waking up to brush her teeth. Even without toothpaste, she brushes her teeth gracefully. Despite the strong wind last night, her shelter held up, allowing Meta to sleep well. All thanks to her self-built shelter, which has a wooden base and a waterproof fabric roof. Inside, a bed of pine branches adds to the cozy feel. Meanwhile, Fleming went fishing early and caught 3 big fish. Today, he caught 3 big fish. He doesn't eat the innards, but they won't go to waste. They can be used as bait to catch more fish. Fleming dug a hole by the shore and buried the fish innards, marking the spot. There's a small stream near his shelter. He has more fish than he can eat right away. The water is as cold as a home refrigerator, around 7 or 8 degrees. Fleming decides to store the eel he caught in the water, hoping animals won't take it. After waking up, Rick made a pot of berry soup for breakfast, but it tasted bad. It needed sugar. He wasn't happy with it. He craved fish instead. Meanwhile, Fleming was having a great time. He grilled a big pot of fish, with plenty more still cooking. Doesn't he know how to smoke fish to make it last? Eating it all at once isn't smart. But Fleming doesn't care about that. He just cooks all the fish in one go, enjoying a feast. Lena just has tea in the morning. She caught 2 fish yesterday and has 1 left, but she still can't get used to the fishy taste. Maybe she should wait until she's hungrier to eat. Penny, exhausted and planless, sits there early in the morning. After days without food, she's exhausted from working. She seems like a rookie. It's now the 6th day. Meta survives on berries every day. She has a good shelter now, so she can focus on catching fish. The water near the shore is very shallow. Meta plans to build a platform to reach deeper waters. After setting up a tripod, she lays 2 wooden sticks on the rocks, letting her walk a bit further to cast her net. It may seem pointless, but it doesn't really help. While others catch fish, Henry keeps working on his shelter. Every season, there's always someone who spends all their time on their shelter. Fortunately, his shelter is quite decent. Today's smoke ventilation system upgrade works well, but such a shelter is easily flammable. After a hearty meal on the second day, Mard focuses on building his shelter. His shelter can even fan out like a peacock. I've never seen a shelter so mobile. Soon he checks his net at the shore, but it might be too shallow. He only catches a small fish, barely enough for one meal, but it's still a hope for survival. Rick is fed up with the rocky ground, so he upgrades his shelter by making a waterproof hammock. The hammock instantly adds a touch of luxury. Rick lies in it, frequently adjusting his position. Though it's not very stable, it's better than sleeping on rocks. Soon he starts cooking the fish. As someone from a fishing family, catching just a small fish today feels humiliating. Worse, he accidentally throws away the fish head while preparing it. Skipping parts of the fish isn't noble, it's just bad cooking. Meta waits for fish to get caught in the net. After days of surviving on berries, he's feeling increasingly tired. Meta needs to eat meat to keep up with all the work. The platform he built today is his best chance to catch fish, which is now the main survival food for everyone. Is it really impossible to hunt other food if they can't catch fish? Soon, Meta starts missing his family. Indeed, people can't stay idle. Meta's main drive is her family, though the $1 million prize is the real reason she joined. After a hearty meal, Suni relaxed by the shore, taking in the view. He seemed idle, just sitting there. These foreigners, when they're not hungry, almost never consider fishing, much like their tendency not to save money. Meanwhile, Lena used yesterday's fish innards as bait. After 6 and she's caught 3 fish. Now, the weather is getting colder, and the fish prefer to hide in deeper waters. Sometimes, she waits all day without catching a single fish. Lena's daily protein intake is insufficient for her energy needs, leaving her feeling drained. She questions her ability to endure hunger and considers quitting each time she fails to catch fish. She thinks about quitting. On the 7th day, it started raining heavily. The weather became very wet and cold. Rick's shelter was soaked, drenching the fish he was grilling. The inside was completely wet, with rainwater pouring in. The shelter's roof was saturated with water. The rocks behind him dripped water non-stop, leaving no dry spot in the shelter. Rick's shelter, though it offered some rain cover, offered no comfort at all. He even took down the waterproof tarp in the rain, choosing to move at this time. I really can't understand the contestants' actions sometimes. He went into the jungle to find a suitable spot, perhaps hoping to use the leaves to shield from the rain. But taking down the shelter in the rain seems unnecessary. On the surface, Rick's actions seemed foolish. In reality, they were downright stupid. He chose a spot and put up the waterproof top once more. Meanwhile, Fleming was quite content with his shelter, remaining dry despite the heavy rain. Instead, he stepped outside to relish the rain. A stream near his shelter made fetching water easy, a major advantage. He stored some fish in a water bag in the stream and used a metal pot as a rain gauge. However, Meta was the most comfortable. She lay in her shelter, very cozy. Meta's shelter had a double waterproof structure. Inside, she could only hear the sound of raindrops. When building the shelter, she had considered its rainproof structure. It was simply a perfect shelter. Meta checked her fishing net at the shore, finding it clogged with branches and no fish. She spent all her time cleaning it. Meanwhile, Mard, he put on his raincoat and prepared to go out. The roof of his shelter had collected a lot of rainwater. He directly used it as drinking water. Rams came to the shore to drink the northwest wind. The mountain stream kept flowing out. He really felt like diving in and ending it all. Henry wasn't spared by the rain either. Water pooled around his shelter, and it was becoming untenable. The inside of the shelter was already starting to flood. Everyone except Meta was affected by the rain. Fleming also began modifying his shelter. He needed to stop water from entering, so he expanded the rainproof area and added drainage grooves. This kept rainwater out of the shelter. Rick finished building it, but felt it wasn't perfect. The only positive was the soft ground. If the rain persisted, Rick would quit. Lena also felt unwell. She threw up all the water she drank and felt sick. She went to the shore to check her net and noticed something caught in it. She needed this fish to regain her strength, but when she pulled up the net, she saw it wasn't a fish. She cursed at the net. Perhaps her weakness was affecting her perception, making her think everything was a fish. Suni was lazing in her shelter. As long as it rained, she couldn't go out. She just dreamt of catching 5 big fish. It seemed like all the contestants were fixated on fish. Was she dreaming or hallucinating? Upon waking, she hurried to check her net. Otherwise, she risked malnutrition and collapse. At the shore, she found a dire situation and tried to pull up the net. It seemed like the net was stuck, and eventually, the rope broke. Suni lost not only the fish, but also her essential fishing tool. Now it was even harder. Without the net, how would she get protein? Soon, the show's boat appeared. Who was going to quit? It was Lena. She was so hungry, she started hallucinating. She had left the net out for days without catching any fish and was starving. After just 7 days, she decided to quit the competition. Lena was the first to quit because she couldn't catch fish. Meanwhile, Rick made another hammock in his shelter. This solved his problem with the dampness. Such a leisurely shelter I had never seen before. Suni went into the water to retrieve her net, but came back with just the rope. What surprises will the contestants bring us next? Stay tuned for the next episode.